Now. Okay. Now you hear me.
There we go.
Okay, 1 second. So this time, Zoom decided to work, which is a great thing. Awesome. Okay, so like Tenchi said, Homelabbing Part 2, aka it's Electric Boogaloo. We're doing off stuff this time. So first things first, who am I? Hi, I'm Fred. I'm a 5th year. I like Golang. I'm a perma black team, and I like Homelabbing. That's basically all you need to know. Quick table of contents for those who care. And now let's get straight into it. So what's the point of off? Well, if you use multiple services, you probably want it. More specifically, you probably want a centralized off system, because if you have multiple services inside your deployment, then that's multiple user accounts that you have to take care of, passwords, usernames, out of sync stuff. It's a pain in the butt. People who have done this can probably attest to that, how much of a pain in the ass can be to remember one login here, there, and everywhere. So having a centralized user storage and centralized credential management is definitely important if you're trying to scale up the services inside your environment. And that link over there is the link to the awesome self-hosted thing, where basically those are different projects you could host inside your environment. And a good amount of them have some type of external authentication support, which we'll just go over a little bit later. And so basically, the solution to all these different credentials is a centralized user directory. So let's see. Let's talk about different user directories. Mainly, we're going to talk about two of them. But before we even go to them, let's talk about the underlying technologies, specifically LDAP, Kerberos, and DNS. I won't go too deep into any of these because, well, each of these can have their own talk. Like, they're crazy. But basically, LDAP, or the Lightweight Directory Access Protocol, makes it possible for applications to query user information rapidly. And it doesn't specify how the directory programs actually work, but it's just a form of language which allows programs to query the directory service itself. So like different LDAP servers might have different schemas, but the actual language to query them ends up being the same. Kind of think about a little bit like SQL. And then at the end of the slides, I have different links to sources that can explain more about this. So I have a link from Okta that will do a pretty good job at explaining what LDAP is. And then we have Kerberos, which what Kerberos is a computer network security protocol that authenticates services between two or trusted hosts across an untrusted network, like via the internet. And it uses secret key crypto and trusted third parties for authenticating the client and server application and verifying their user identities. If you've done some of the CSEC courses here at RIT, you've probably heard of attacks focusing on Kerberos, like Kerberosing and stuff like that, or golden ticket. Yeah, that's kind of where that plays in. And then there's DNS, where while it doesn't go straight in, like specifically affect off, there's a lot of things that depend on DNS to be properly working. So if it's just not working in your environment, you're probably saying it's not DNS. It couldn't be DNS. You probably have a bad record one way or another, and it is your DNS server that messed shit up. So yeah, all these have different resources at the end, which you can read more about it later. So the different actual use cases. So it actually depends on what your home lab environment really is. If you're more of a Linux shop, then you probably want to use FreeIPA, Red Hat, IDM, Rocky Identity Manager, whatever the heck you want to call it, has different names. All the same stuff at the end of the day. Or if you have mainly a Windows environment, you probably want Windows AD. You've probably heard of AD before, maybe not so much FreeIPA. FreeIPA is basically Red Hat's version of Windows AD for Linux. And you don't just use FreeIPA with Red Hat distros like Fedora and stuff. You could also use it for like Ubuntu and Debian if you want. So which ones do I use? Well, long story short, I use FreeIPA. If you don't know me, I like Linux. So my personal laptop itself runs Linux as daily driver, which may or may not have caused me issues last time I tried to present this. But yeah, so I use Linux in general, so all my servers are running Linux. So for me, it just made sense to use Red Hat IDM as my data store. And then not only that, it integrates well with the SSO provider, which I use for single sign-on and all that stuff. And plus, it's pretty cool because since I have a Linux laptop and my server is IDM, I'm able to enroll my laptop into Linux and then basically Kerberoize my laptop to be able to use it with SSO and like for different things like my storage server and stuff like that without having to actually enter in my password. So pretty neat. So now let's talk about SSO, which is mainly used for like web-based applications. So SSO is a technology which basically gets rid of all the different application login screens and puts them into one. You're basically able to sign into the SSO portal once, and then for every subsequent applications that are connected to the SSO server, it just basically uses the cookies and auth requests that you originally signed in and basically just let you go in without having to re-enter all your username and password and all that stuff. So it's pretty dope. And let's see. And the common protocols nowadays are either using like OAuth 2.0 / OpenID Connect and or SAML 2 for most like Homelabbing type projects. If they do support SSO, it's probably using OpenID Connect, where SAML 2 is more towards like the enterprise application space. But there are still Homelabbing applications that do support it, if they do support SSO. So I was actually looking for a list of different things. And these are just like a few different ones. Normally, if you go on like the subreddit and stuff like that, you usually see like offload recommended, ADFS sometimes, AD obviously, Keycloak, which is the one that I use, and then Offtick, which is where this actual thing is from. I actually hadn't heard about Offtick until I like started searching some more about it. So it looked pretty cool, but the only feature that it gave additional than Keycloak is LDAP, but since I'm already using FreeIPA, I already have LDAP authentication, so for me it was kind of redundant, but still pretty cool if you don't want to roll a full-on like Red Hat IDM, Keycloak, all that stuff stack. You could just do Offkit and use it just simple for all your user management across your applications. But yeah, no, like I said, my poison is Keycloak, and this is a good table if you want to compare stuff. Like I said, at the end of the slide, there's some links to the resources, which I mentioned here. And yeah, that's basically that. And then all I have left is my demo, I guess. So yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so Fred's demo will not be streamed. However, we will be switching to Discord.